Welcome back to another video from Bill's Ramblings. Today I want to talk about a little bit of what life was like when we lived in Greeley, Colorado. I mentioned in a previous video that we had lived in Greeley, and my brother and I used to go down to the Poudre River and, you know, run around and do all kinds of things. Well, I went and checked it out, and I was wrong, and it wasn't the Poudre. It's the South Platte River in Greeley, Colorado. So sorry about that, but I did check it. It is the South Platte. So the time is 1970, and my mom had remarried, and her husband was going to the university there in Greeley. And so we had moved to Greeley, and we were out, I don't know, out from town a ways, and it was a small house, not a real big house, had a basement. And because of the college town, a lot of people rented their basements out to the college kids, and I guess that my mom and stepdad had done that for a little while, but then eventually the college kids had moved into the house next door, and they were living there. And so I want to talk about them in a minute, but I want to go and talk about how life can really kind of shape you and put you in directions that you wouldn't necessarily think you were going to go. And I mentioned before that we had a lot of fun in Greeley. We had a lot of fun in the snow. We had a lot of fun going around and playing in the river and things like that. But there were some bad times too. There were some times that I wish that I hadn't had to go through. And here's one of those things. You know, I told you that I was a small boy, and I was very, very small. And at this particular time in 1970, as a third grader and 9 years old, I was really small. And we lived in a house right next to the school that we attended. I don't remember the name of the school, but the school's fence was our back fence. And there used to be an old, I guess it was a barbecue grill made out of bricks or something like that. And we used to take a shortcut and go over the top of that fence. I'd climb up the barbecue grill, up the bricks, and go over the fence and just walk to school that way. And as opposed to walking around the fence and into the main entryway at the school. But well, anyway, there were some kids in that school that felt that they really needed to pick on somebody as small as me. And so it wasn't uncommon for recess for me to get beat up by, three or four boys and have a bunch of people standing around and laughing. I used to get beat up on a regular basis. And getting out of school in the afternoon, I mean, I knew pretty much every day that I was going to get beat up. And I'd fight back. I'd do what I could, but I was small and I really couldn't do anything about it. And I would get out of school, and when that bell would ring, and I would hit that door, and I would run for the corner of that fence. I would run as fast as I could go to beat these kids to the fence, get over the fence, and in my house before they got me. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't work. And so sometimes I'd be halfway up the fence, and they'd drag me and pull me back down and beat me up. And my brother Benny, who went to that school also, and they didn't have any problems picking fights with him. And sometimes the two of us could fend them off for a little while, and sometimes we couldn't. And there was one particular time I remember, it was on a weekend, or maybe it was in the summer, I don't remember, but our little brother Rob, he was riding his bike in the road, and these kids, the ones that like to pick on us, came over there and knocked him off his bike. And so I ran out there and started, telling them they couldn't do that or whatever. And of course they jumped on me and started beating me up. And so I'm running around the house in a circle trying to get away from these two boys that were chasing me. And Benny's in the house and he hears the commotion, and pretty soon he runs out the front door and he grabs the boy that was falling behind, and he proceeds to whoop up on him. And so I'm running the loop from the first one, and I notice that there's only one, so I turn around and grab him and start whooping up on him. Well, if I didn't have three or four boys on me, I did a pretty good job. I could pretty well defend myself. And so here's what happened was Benny was whooping up on the one boy in the front yard, and I was whooping up on the other boy in the backyard, and we did pretty good. And eventually, they said, "Okay, we've had enough," and away they went, and they left. And but they went back, and when they got with their buddies, and they caught me again on another day, and there were 4 or 5 of them, and I was by myself, and I didn't win that time, and there was no whooping up from me. It was a whole bunch of whooping up on me. Well, anyway, so that kind of really shaped my life for a long time, where as a small boy, I had to learn how to fight, or I had to learn how to get whooped all the time. And I didn't particularly like getting whooped. I didn't like coming home with black eyes and bloody noses and split lips and things like that. I didn't like it. And at that particular time, there really wasn't any recourse in the school. And so we just, one of those things we just kind of had to deal with. And well, like I said, that, continued on in my life and all the way up into grade school when we moved back to Phoenix, and all the way into high school. And that's another story. I don't want to get into that one right now. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to tell you about the college kids that lived next door to us. And they were a really interesting group of boys, college boys, I guess, maybe in their early 20s. I don't remember exactly their age, and I don't even remember how many there were. But, I remember calling them hippies. They were just a bunch of hippies, and, we were pretty good friends, and I guess they liked us because we were picked on, and or maybe because we were neighbors, I don't know, but we liked to go over their house because they were fun. In the inside of their house that they rented, they took off the doors, all the doors on the inside of the house, and they hung beads. They hung strings of beads that went from the top of the door jamb all the way down to the floor. So, as a boy, we'd go in there, and we kind of thought it was kind of cool, to walk around through all these beads and stuff. They wore big bell-bottom pants, and I'm sure they had long hair, and I'm going to say that, they had, all kind of hippie type stuff, but because that's the way I remember it. But one of the neatest things that they ever did was, we were in there and they were showing us around, and I said to them, I said, "Hey, what's this thing on the floor in the bedroom?" And they said, "Well, that's our bed." And I'd never seen a bed on the floor, and it didn't look like a bed. It looked like a great big water balloon. And he says, "Well, no, that's our bed." He says, "We call it a waterbed." And I said, "A waterbed?" He said, "Yeah, you wanna check it out?" And I said, I don't know. And he grabbed me by the arms and the legs and just tossed me in the air, and I landed on that waterbed. And of course, you'd imagine it went wobble, 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 and big waves. And I was on that bed flopping around, and they got a big kick out of that. And I got a pretty big kick out of it also, because I'd never heard of sleeping on a water balloon. And so every time I'd go over there to visit them, I'd go run in and go through the beads on the doors and jump on the waterbed and flop around. And that was a pretty good memory for me. And so even though the school wasn't a whole lot of fun, getting beat up all the time, and even though the environment wasn't conducive, we still had good times. Like I said, we'd go down to the river and have fun down there, and the neighbors were nice, and we loved the snow, and we liked all the things that we went through there. And I don't even know that I necessarily think back now and think badly about getting beat up. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but it made me a strong person. It made me realize that I needed to stand up for myself. I needed to learn how to do what I needed to do, and of course, as I matured, I realized fighting wasn't the way. But anyway, so that was 1970 in Greeley, Colorado, and the hippies and the waterbeds and the beads hanging down the door. Uh, I want to thank you for visiting the another video, and I'll see you on the next one. And bye now.